Repent thy sins. What a week, guys. This is Vice of Life, starring me and your shook hosts, Eloy and Josh.
I'm shook.
You know, it's been a wild week, guys. It's been, last week, just with this coronavirus thing, last week I said, it's not that big of a deal.
Everything's gone.
Everything's changed in 4 days. It's a big deal now, kids.
Oh, yeah.
Whether the virus itself or whatever, that's a different conversation. But just everything that's happening around it is wild, man.
Everybody's reactions to it, all the public perception, it's just spiraling.
The economic impact.
Yes, exactly that too.
Yeah.
Well, that's what I was telling my dad, because he's like, him and my mom, of course, are like convinced it's like this conspiracy created by the government to make Trump look better and control the people and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, well, regardless of that, like the impacts are real. So it's not really helpful to like do all that. But
exactly.
Yeah.
That's where I'm at with it. I mean, I'm not one of these people that are like, hey, man, I'm still going to party. I'm still going to go out to the bars.
Yeah, that's
because I'm not going to let coronavirus be anything. I'll quarantine. I get it. As much as I say that the earth needs to die, I'm not one of these people that's going to go out and transfer it to all the elderly.
Yeah.
Okay, I understand why we're quarantining.
I'm real bummed about it. I was going to go to a concert tonight.
Oh, yeah?
I was playing with fire, though. I was going to the gym every day still. I stopped going because I was asked nicely.
See, then this is why I'm like of two minds, because it's like, are you really playing with fire? Because in Utah, I think we have like 30 or 40 cases.
Close. Last I checked, it was like yesterday morning. It was like 39 confirmed.
Yeah.
Damn.
But of course, a lot of them, those are just confirmed, so we don't know how many are unconfirmed. So I go back and forth on whether or not it's like a big deal to go to like, the gym is a little bit different because there's a lot of people being,
yeah.
That's a lot. It's kind of different, but like going to the grocery store or something. But like I said, follow precautions and, go to self-quarantine and stuff if you aren't already doing it.
I've been doing it, man, for months.
You knew something was coming. You felt it.
Yeah. So, like, was the gym still open and they just asked you to leave?
I think I got an email yesterday saying that at least the one I go to in Murray is closed. I imagine that's all around, however.
Yeah, that's what I've heard.
I went before things started getting crazy and people were already, like there was like 6 other people in there in the middle of the day when it's usually 40 other people, it feels like. So it's slowing down a lot, and I imagine that's a big reason they decided to close it. And then like my work might close and everything. I don't know.
Yeah, same here. I have a coworker that's in a band called Visigoth that's like pretty big in Europe, I guess, and they did like a week-long tour over there. And their drummer was like feeling sick and everything, and when they came back, he tested and it was positive. And so now that coworker's like quarantined, and they won't test him unless he shows symptoms, which is kind of frustrating because I wish I just had that peace of mind, like, okay, we're fine.
Or if he's a celebrity, by the way, let's not forget.
Yeah, true. Apparently, yeah.
In Europe. If he were in Europe, he'd be tested right away.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
That's what Idris Elba is. He didn't have any symptoms, but because he's Idris Elba, he got tested.
Oh, yeah. Same with Tom Hanks and all these,
These glasses, motherfuckers. I don't know if I'm doing not Joe Biden, Bernie Sanders or Alex Jones there, but you decide. You decide.
Well, yeah, it's scary because there's a window where they're saying, okay, well, if there's no symptoms by this next Sunday or whatever, you should be fine, which is kind of like annoying. But if he did test and it was positive, we'd be shut down for 2 weeks, like no question. Just like he already talked to the health department and the whole thing. So I don't know, man. Weird shit. Like it's definitely scary.
It's just funny because I think about how my son is thinking about all this.
Yeah, I've been thinking that too.
And this is everybody's making comparisons with like this generation's 9/11 kind of thing.
Yeah.
Which I think is apt. But, I mean, I think this is probably more memorable than 9/11, but maybe not. I don't know.
Well,
You know?
I mean, it depends
I
on
mean,
what
I'm
sort
saying
of
that as a
lens you
kid.
look at.
as a
That sounds
kid,
bad, but
absolutely.
As
yeah.
a child, yeah. Okay, I get
Yeah.
I get that. Okay.
Because as a kid, you're like, what? There's a plane that flew into a building? What? Whereas I think as a kid, you can kind of wrap your head around like getting sick and
Yeah.
an earthquake and stuff.
Well, 9/11, like I was like 8 or something when it happened, and I knew it was scary, but it was so far away that I was only kind of reacting the same level that other people were.
Yeah.
And
You're
as
also a little bit
you
older
know.
than Eloy and I, so
I guess that's true. I was around there, but yeah, you're like, oh, in New York, it's all over the news, it's scary, but you're not like looking around like, don't touch me, and like all this, like it's totally different, you know.
Yeah.
So I get what you mean.
But he seems happy. I asked after the earthquake here, for those listening outside of Utah, there was a
Okay, I guess we should have established that
Oh,
with
yeah.
all the jokes we had in the beginning.
near Salt Lake City in a town called Magna, which is, I don't know, 20 miles west-ish of Salt Lake City.
Yeah.
There was a 5.7, 5.9. I heard it going back and forth between the two. But there's one of those earthquakes and then a bunch of aftershocks. Last I heard, it was above 80 aftershocks.
Yep.
Wow,
Some of them hitting 4.0 or whatever.
Damn.
No deaths, no injuries as of the time we're recording this. Well, I think that's probably going to stay the case, but
I think so, yeah.
very minor structural damage. The airport closed down for a while. They had a water break.
Yeah.
Damn.
But that's what's happening for you guys outside of Utah. But
The
it's
smoke
just
shop owners, I'm sorry. Rest in peace to all your bongs.
I see. Well, we'll just go into the vice of the week, so to speak. But I'm sure it'll probably revolve around self-quarantining or this earthquake for all of us. So. But where were you when the earthquake hit? You know, where will you be when the acid drops, kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I was at the radio station, and I was doing like the live broadcast stuff. I was switching between. Hey, why don't you guys go to Twitter for me and
Yeah, I was gonna say
I'll
we
play
should
the
play
video.
that.
I was switching between the live stream cameras for the people that were on air, Carrie, Bill, and Gina, and they were talking about. They do this feature called the Boner of the Week, and every day they pick like a funny, stupid, or just a news story of funny, stupid, or silly human behavior. I think is how they phrase it. And then at the end of the week, they match all those together, but they have one guy come in called Dave the Flower Guy, and he gets to pick between the 5, which is the worst of the week. And so they were talking about him, and then Josh is pulling up the video.
I'm on your Twitter. I'm trying
I'll
to
go to
find-
Bill Allred.
Oh,
Twitter.
Bill Allred. Okay.
But so I was sitting there. I wasn't paying attention because at this point, switching between cameras is really mind numbing. I just have to listen for the tone of voice of who's speaking, and I just push a button. And so like I'm usually like playing like word games on my phone as I'm switching between cameras. And
Here you
oh,
go.
can you play it? I can't play it.
Oh, sure. Just
Yeah.
send it to me or something.
Oh, the video?
Or how do I find him? I'm not finding Bill Allred.
RFH Bill. Go to RFH.
RFH Bill.
I didn't even know this show was filmed
Yeah,
whatsoever.
it's live
There you
streamed every.
Nice. Yeah, I didn't know that
I
either.
thought it was strictly a radio show.
But if I was just sitting in there, I'm
Oh, here
lucky
you go.
that. Oh, here you go.
Or sorry, you can keep.
And so we called him,
Here you
and we didn't get an answer this past Friday. I
Talking
called
about
him
Bill.
yesterday, and I said,
Dave.
Dave, are you okay?
We're having an earthquake.
Yep. No.
Having an earthquake, yeah.
No.
Yeah.
That's awesome. You did that? Like you put the thing in?
No, they went back and did it. At the time, everybody was freaking out. Like me and the producer, this is the first earthquake we've felt. So
Yeah.
she was freaking out. Like she immediately ran to the door frame. Even
Oh,
though
that's good.
I hear that that's actually not great.
The first person I've heard that actually practices like any sort of like earthquake preparation, even though it's not the greatest thing to do.
Yeah.
But like I stayed in bed and I'm like called my dog to come over. I'm like, get up here. Everybody else just kind of sat where they were.
Yeah.
I mean, it wasn't particularly long. It felt like it was like 20 seconds or so.
Yeah.
At most, so.
I mean, from what I'm hearing, it's a pretty long one. I was listening to the radio on the way home because a lot of the lights was out. The lights were out on the way back home, so the traffic was really crazy.
Oh yeah.
And I was listening to the radio and people just taking calls from people. And a lot of people from LA were saying, like, that's, like, I've been in that kind of magnitude of an earthquake before, but it's never been that long. So that's what
really?
was surprising to them. Usually it's only a couple seconds, but
Wow.
so apparently it was pretty long, which is it is amazing that very little damage was done.
Yeah. Honestly, I mean, even coming home, I was wondering like what's going to be off the walls or whatever, and there wasn't really anything. So that's nice. Like,
Yeah, when I came home, because I got home before any of you guys, in the garage we have like a painting or something of that wolf
oh
that
yeah.
had fallen down.
Okay.
I think the door to the attic in the garage got knocked loose. Now it's kind of open. I don't know if it was like that before or not.
It was a little weird before, but
A couple
Oh,
of
yeah.
your drawers in your guys' bathroom were open.
okay.
Like just knickknacks on the kitchen had been knocked over.
Yeah.
For us, surprisingly little had actually happened. So at the house, but I was in like a skyscraper. It's 12 stories or whatever. But we're only on the second floor. And what's crazy is they build these buildings to sway with the earthquake. You always hear.
Yeah.
Even after the earthquake, I could still feel it like shaking a little bit. And I'm only on the second floor, mind you, so it's not like I'm like.
Yeah.
It was a weird feeling for sure.
Wow.
But luckily, I'm in an open enough space where I do the radio that it wasn't a big deal. Nothing was like falling off shelves or anything. So
Yeah, that's good.
as far as that goes, but everybody was freaking out. At one point, Carrie and Bill, the guy you heard talking was Bill, but they were on air. They were like, we got to take calls. Like, we got to stay on air. And then Gina's like, I don't want to be here. Like, we got to go.
Yeah.
Oh, damn.
And then eventually they got the word from management of the building to be like, get out of here. And I was just sitting around like, I don't know if they need me. Like, there was talk about doing a remote broadcast at somebody's house. And I'm like, am I supposed to be here? Like, they don't really need me. So I was just standing around. And then Gina's like, go home. And I'm like, all
Shit, all right, got it.
I'm out.
Okay.
But then I just drove home and listened to the radio. So it wasn't a big deal for me, all in all. But you were just laid in bed, Eloy?
I was just laying in bed. Some things fell in my closet, nothing big, and a clock fell off the wall in the living room, and it kind of messed up the trim next to the ground. But that was about it.
So it does happen. That thing does happen.
Stuff does
Yeah,
fall.
Josh
Clock's
gets that,
falling.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I was gonna say, hey, good time for any scam artists out there. If you had any damages in your home previous to the earthquake, it's a great time to say, hey, you know what happened this morning?
I was watching the news, and some buildings did like crack up the side of them. I saw some people on Twitter say that like they had cracks in their bedroom and stuff.
Really?
I didn't see any pictures of that though, so I don't know.
Yeah.
But
That's one of those pics or it didn't happen kind of
yeah,
thing.
exactly.
Yeah.
And then on the news, there were buildings that were like cracked up, and then there was this old. I want to say it was next to like a rescue center. They had this older building.
The rescue mission or whatever.
Yeah.
Mission. Yeah.
They have this older building right next door that's not connected, but they're gonna do something with it in the future. But yeah, like a bunch of rubble fell off of that. Luckily, no one was underneath it.
It was 7 a.m, by the way. So
Yeah,
Yeah.
a lot of people were in beds, like what Eloy was experiencing. So
Yeah, it was weird for me. Like I start work at about 7, so I was there at that time, and I clocked in and everything, and then I work in like a warehouse. So I was walking out into the warehouse, and when I get there, normally I like take over for the night guys. So we're like, hey, how's this been going, and how many do we need, and blah blah blah, and we're standing there talking and everything. And I was just kind of like, another day, and then just, and like the walls are shaking. There's all these like fluorescent lights on the ceiling just swaying back and forth.
yeah, yeah.
And we have all of this shelving like all around the building with all these dies. Like they're just like big wood panels with basically like razors in them so that it can smash into the paper and put like perforation or whatever. It's kind of hard to explain, but we were all wondering, like, are those going to fall over? Like, are these beams going to fall and all this shit? And, yeah, it was wild because the concrete we're standing on was, like, moving in waves, and the wall was going back and forth, and everything's falling over. And, oh, my God, man.
exactly how it felt like. It felt like someone just picked up the whole house and just fucking shook it.
Yeah.
Violently.
Well, and the sound, too, just that deep rumbling, and you're wondering, like, Is there like a car driving by?
Honestly, I
Like,
thought
what
there
is
was
that?
I thought it was fucking martial law. I thought there was a tank rolling down the
I know,
street.
right?
I don't know.
Yeah, God, we're getting to that point. Maybe I don't know.
It's like a slow build too. Like it's
Yeah,
everybody looks around. They're kind of like, huh. Like
Yeah,
in
that's
the
all
video you
anyone
played,
did.
like, oh, we're having an earthquake. Like it takes a couple of seconds before you're like, oh shit, and then it starts in full force, and then everybody's just kind of grabbing their chair, like, oh whoa, what the fuck is going on?
yeah. No one ducked. No one went under an arch or whatever. We all just stood there and looked at each other like, what do we do? What do we do?
That's part of like horror movies. You know
Yeah.
how how people just always stand and like as they're about to be run over or something.
I
A
know,
horror
man.
movie, and then you're like, get out of the way.
It's like shit. I understand
Yeah.
now.
Yeah.
I get it.
The second rumble that happened around like 1, I was ready, man. I was like getting under the machine. I'm like, fuck this.
Yeah, that's what I hear. A lot of people at that point are like, under the table.
Yeah. Most
I was-
people left right after it happened. So
Yeah.
it's crazy.
Yeah. During that second little one, like I think it was a 4.7, 4.9, something like that.
Something like that.
Damn.
But I was just in my room and I like stood up from my chair, and then it was happening, and then I saw my cat. He was laying on the edge of my bed, and immediately he like gets up and he's like looking around. He's like fucking freaking out, and so I'm like, I stand up. I'm like, hey man, it's okay, and I'm petting him, and he's fucking so nervous. Like
Yeah.
when I got home, he was hiding in where our washer and dryer are. It's kind of like in a closet tucked away.
Yeah.
There's like a little tiny little space for a cat to crawl behind. He somehow got his way in there and was just like cowering, and I was trying to like goad him into
Oh.
coming out. But
That's how my dog was. He wanted to go outside. I'm assuming he just associated it with the house in general because he wanted to go outside and just fucking stay there.
Huh.
He would not come in. He was outside for like an hour and a half.
Wow.
I could not get him to come in.
yeah, I don't know. I feel like I remember hearing that outside is not a good place to be during the school drills. Was that false? Do you guys remember?
I don't know. Like, I feel like that's what we did, but then there's like a telephone pole could fall and all this shit.
It's like stay
I
away
think
from
like
trees and stuff.
yeah, I think it is good, but as long as
It's
like
an open
you're
space.
Depends
like
on
it's
your
open
surroundings,
space. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what was scary for me mostly, is that I was in downtown Salt Lake, where, as I was
God,
saying
yeah.
earlier, it was where probably the most like steel and wood and building supplies are all concentrated in one spot.
Yeah.
So if those went down, I'd be like, oh god, I'm in the worst spot for that to be. But because overall Utah is fairly flat, the valley at least, the buildings are separated. We don't have a lot of skyscrapers, but
Yeah.
which means there could still be damage. But
Yeah.
Magna looked pretty rough. I was looking
Yeah, I
at
haven't seen
stuff
that.
on Facebook, and a lot of older buildings. I don't even know if they're in use or not. And I think the high school had a bunch of bricks falling off and like cracks in the walls and foundation and shit. It looked pretty bad. I mean, I have a coworker that lives out there, and it was like a 12-minute drive from work or whatever, but he doesn't have a car or anything, so I'm like, yeah, I'll take you. And they had broken windows, and like it was a wreck, man. All of their like bookshelves fell over and crashed into other things, and it was just like wild. But
yeah.
I don't know.
I have an uncle that lives out in Magna, but from what I heard, everything was fine.
That's good.
So I don't know if that's just in relation to them or their structural integrity.
Yeah. Well, this is one of those things where it's like it's a double bind for poorer people because they probably live in a worse area with less structural integrity, or it's an older building or whatever, and then they get hit, and then they have the least resources. And because this guy is, I mean, look, he's an ex-con, all this stuff. He's living at home with his elderly mother and shit, and it's not good. Really sucks for them, for sure.
Do you know if they had insurance or anything? Earthquake insurance?
I hope. I don't know. I'll ask him tomorrow if he's there.
Having never bought a house, I just kind of assume that people bake that in with the mortgage, but I don't.
You would
That
think.
might not be a thing.
Yeah, I don't know.
I don't know. I hear it talked about separately, so I don't know.
Yeah.
This was my response.
A what? Well, fuck.
That's how I felt this morning.
Exactly. After it all passed over, I was like, oh, shit. God damn, I'm alive.
A what? Oh, fuck.
See, and I'm already feeling like, because I've seen like Nest home cameras or whatever of people's houses. And the shaking in those videos, I feel like, is more violent than what I have in my memory.
Yeah,
And it's kind of one of those things where it's like your memory is untrustworthy because, in my mind, I guess my mind is reducing it to be like, oh yeah, it wasn't that bad. Like most things that I do in life, but but those videos, man, it's pretty wild. It makes you wonder that if that's like a 5.9, we'll round up to 6, even though I know that's probably a bad thing to do with the Richter scale. But what about those other 3 points? Like,
oh yeah,
like you're literally probably getting knocked to the ground because of the shaking and shit.
They're saying on the news that around a 7.0 is when it starts getting like major damage.
Yeah.
Damn.
Not to belittle this one because it was a larger one still. But.
Yeah, this earthquake was a real flop, man. Not a lot of damage.
Oh
I
shit!
mean, a better earthquake.
A local musician, Sarah, had one of the best tweets of.
Oh yes, fucking gold. This is gold.
Trying to see it
You
here.
didn't see it.
Her tweet is, as it loads, 1 second. The earthquake has nothing to be ashamed of. 5.7 is above average.
Hell yeah. Nice.
But that's
I like
good.
that.
It is good. But yeah, so earthquake talk.
Yeah, man. Don't trust the ground you walk on.
There was also rumors going around that a bigger one was supposed to be happening, and like a 9.0. People were getting emails like a 9.0 is coming in the next 30 minutes. Prepare, drive your cars out of the garage. And I'm just like,
Wow.
no, it's not true, but it's okay. And my mom even called me. She's like, there's supposed to be another one, and I don't know. I probably came off as pretty rude, but I was just like laughing. I was like, haha, no, that's false, girl. That's false. She's like, how do you know the church? It's going around the church. Like, that's her litmus test of what is truth.
Right.
You know?
Which is, yeah.
Yeah. But I actually saw Utah Emergency Management say like that's not true, and 95% of earthquakes, the aftershocks lessen and lessen and lessen. So
Yeah.
I haven't felt any in a few hours, so.
yeah.
Yeah, true. I felt like 2 when I was napping here around like between like 2 and 4. They woke me up a little bit, but it wasn't. I didn't like jump out of bed. I was like, "Here we go." Yeah, it'll be over soon. But
Under the table.
yeah,
This room right here is where you want to be. When
Probably.
the earthquake hits. You just hop right out of bed, move that chair, dive under the table.
yeah,
It's
exactly.
perfect.
Yeah, we're we're using this room as a multi-room. It's the bunker.
Yeah.
It's my son's bedroom, the podcasting room. It's
Yeah,
everything.
Don't you ever say they don't make the most out of their space.
Yeah.
Got to.
Fuck, I was gonna say something else about the earthquake, but it skipped my mind.
Yeah, freaky shit.
Well, is there anything else you guys want to talk about for your what'd you do in the week part of this show?
Started watching Love Is Blind. It's pretty good.
Oh,
What is
God.
it? It's getting spicy.
It's like one of those reality shows that just sounds and looks so cringeworthy, but in like
Yeah,
I want to laugh at this
Mm.
kind of way.
I started watching one of those shows too. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Tell
This
me, what
one,
is it?
this one's funny. So it's like groups of men and women, and then they go sit in these rooms where there's like a thin barrier between them and the other person, and it's like this fake crystal plastic thing going up the wall with like blue light shining through it, and they're like talking to each other through the wall for like hours on end. Like it's kind of funny. Like they'll match up the people that are starting to really like each other for like the end of the night, and it's like been 12 hours or whatever of just talking to each person, like going through each one in each room.
It's like speed dating. Is what it sounds like.
I mean,
I'm
but
failing to follow.
But very slow dating. I don't know.
Yeah, like
I haven't actually watched this, so I'm learning alongside you.
I don't know how long they're there, but it's just days of this. Like they're getting to know the person more and more and deciding like, I don't like person in number 3, but I like number 12,
okay,
like
okay.
that type of thing.
Yeah,
And,
yeah, yeah.
and then the men and women are like they're my pick, like fuck you and and all this stuff.
I forget which number I like.
It's pretty funny.
And they're all just
I
fat
was like
slobs.
in love with number 3, but I'd be like, oh yeah, it was definitely number 8.
Yeah, you go in, you'll oh shit, this is not the one. It's funky because there's a woman on there that's like 43 and she's hot, man. She's a hot blonde, but most of the guys there are like 24 or whatever.
Is it this girl right here?
Yep, that's her.
Okay.
I think at least.
I was trying to get
no, don't show me that. Now I'm gonna know they got together. God
oh
damn it.
shit, sorry.
Wow. Spoiler alert.
Yeah, that guy's 27.
I was just trying to look for
Maybe she's 33.
a photo of like what the set looks like.
I think she's 33 and he's 27.
All right.
I apologize for ruining your show for you.
That was a better match. The other guy was 24 and kind of seems like a virgin. So I don't know. It probably wouldn't have worked out. But
The where are you watching this, by the way? Hulu?
it's on Netflix.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
They like produced it or whatever. But
I've been hearing about these TLC shows, which are basically like that kind of thing. About
90 Day Fiance and
yeah. I started watching one where it's like sex sent me to the ER.
oh yeah.
Oh god.
You've
I
seen
love
it?
those shows. A little bit.
No,
Yeah.
I haven't seen it, but it's just that name.
I didn't know I was pregnant. That's a good one too.
What the
I,
fuck are these shows?
I just watched the first episode, but apparently there was a guy who like the 40-year-old virgin, but he was like 400 pounds.
Oh yeah.
And the first time he's having sex with his girlfriend, he sends her head through a wall.
Oh,
Because she's like a small girl and he's
Shit.
a big dude, and so
Yeah.
you just think of like 400 pounds just like pushing against
Just
the
one
woman.
thrust.
like-
Flies through the wall.
wow.
Oh, that's
Have
amazing.
some power in that thrust.
But those shows, man,
God
I've been at the point where it's kind of like I'm over watching a lot of series.
Yeah.
It's just too much and I can't keep up.
I know.
But I did start watching Curb Your Enthusiasm. I don't know if I told you that, but
Oh, nice.
so besides Curb, I think I'm just gonna start getting into like those TLC shows. And you said
Yeah.
Love Is Blind.
Yep.
Yeah, I'll have to re-up my Netflix subscription for that. But
My coworker was telling me about The Circle on Netflix. And it just sounds hilarious. It's like a bunch of these people that live in like an apartment complex or whatever, and the whole show is about them just speaking to one another and everything, but it's all online, like it's a social media.
Mm.
It sounds like a social media kind of like social experiment
Yeah, yeah.
kind of thing. And like some people will go on and they'll be their real selves, and other people will like try and catfish the other people, and then
Oh, wow.
like they vote people out, but when they do that, they bring other people in.
Huh.
I don't know. I can't remember specific examples of like what my coworker told me, but it just sounds fucking hilarious.
Yeah, I want to see.
human
Also on
creativity,
Netflix.
man.
Yep.
On Netflix.
Oh, that's Netflix too.
So Netflix is becoming the new
The new
TLC,
TLC.
the new
Yeah.
HBO with specials, like comedy specials.
Taking over.
They're taking over.
Part of me, I can't lie, part of me is a little suspicious of the coronavirus as far as the conspiracy end goes, because it's like people are saying like support small business, the big companies will be fine, and it's like, is this like a cleansing of small business so that like the big four can just take over, and
Yeah.
Amazon, Facebook, Google, what's the other one? I don't know. Microsoft? I don't remember. But you know, it's like maybe all we're gonna eat is Chili's from now on.
Yeah. I saw Netflix actually added a feature called Netflix Party where you can like chat with your friends as you're watching a
Oh,
show.
Okay.
So maybe they're just like, you don't need to go out and support business.
Exactly.
Stay inside. That kind of thing.
It could be, man. I will say on Love Is Blind, really quick, most of the people are like conventionally attractive, but there's a few uggos in there, and they don't address what's going on with them like at all. It's kind of weird.
They just have them like in the lineup in the beginning of the episode, never show
Yeah,
them.
you keep seeing them in the background, but they never talk about what's going on. Like,
They're like, you know who the loser is.
yeah, you know, no one's hitting it off, but they might. I don't know. I only just started, so maybe it'll get more in depth.
See, I'm one of these dumb fucks. Like I was listening to a podcast that was talking about these TLC shows.
Yeah.
And they played a clip from it, and it was some dude being like, I think it's like 60-Day Wife or something like that.
90
Where it's like
Day
these.
Fiance.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, I've watched that a little bit too.
But there's like this guy that's gonna go marry like this young woman from like some Latin country,
Yep.
and then he's like, I'm kind of not confident in my looks. I'm really self-conscious because I'm not like, I don't think I have very good looks or whatever. And I didn't notice this until the podcast had pointed it out, but they cut audio together of the dude, and so I didn't notice it. Like they got it past me where he never actually said that he was self-conscious about his appearance or whatever, but they spliced it in such a way as he's like walking away from a camera or whatever.
Oh yeah.
You know?
That's
Weird.
fucked.
Yeah.
God.
At that point I realized I'm never gonna get on one of these shows because I was like, oh yeah, maybe one day if I was in the right headspace, but
Yeah.
now I won't if I know they're gonna splice together audio like that.
Oh yeah.
I'm not surprised, but it's still fucked.
If I'm like talking about an ugly contestant, one of those ugly contestants, you know,
Yep.
and I'm like, man, that guy's a real ugly piece of shit. And then I'm also talking about myself in another one, and they cut it together. Man, I'm a real ugly piece of shit. You know,
God damn.
I don't want it. I don't want that to happen.
Yeah, I can see that. Well, because they want to like stir controversy and everything, you know. 90 Day Fiance is funny. That's always that kind of a setup where like they have a 90-day visa and they have to decide if they're going to get married and that type of thing. And I've only watched a little bit, but it is pretty trashy. It's good stuff. You know?
It's good comedy, man. It's
Yeah.
good comedy. But
And sometimes
Those
very
TV shows
cringy.
look like they just look like the best thing for. It's just to fucking laugh at people.
no,
I love it.
and that's what we're best at as human beings.
Have you guys watched, God, what is that show called? My Strange Addiction? You seen any of those?
I think I've seen like clips, but I haven't actually sat down and watched it.
Just one of some lady that was addicted to like ice cream, or like
Oh,
ice
that's
cream.
nothing.
But it was like the extent that she goes. It's really weird.
Yeah, I believe it. Well,
I mean, I get that's probably one of the very smaller ones, but
yeah, there's like addicted to eating glass, eating mattresses, eating dirt. Or no, maybe it's clay. But the best ones are all of the sexual ones. Like this guy loves inflatables, and he has like his favorite like inflatable dinosaur and whale and all this bullshit. And he's like, they're just so smooth and full, and there's just nothing like it. And so he sleeps in this room just full of like inflatable animals and shit.
Wow.
There's the guy in love with his car. You
I've heard
guys have
about
probably
that one.
seen that, at least a clip or something. He's like
Yeah.
kissing it.
Forgot
He's,
about that
I
one.
love you.
Yeah.
It's pretty crazy shit.
The,
That's another TLC thing.
Yeah. They make your money, man.
Yeah.
A lot of people are stupid and they deserve to be exploited. Is that bad to say? I don't care.
They're getting some kind of payout for it, I hope. So
But you notice how you were saying a lot of the people, they have an addiction with swallowing things.
yeah.
There's actually a movie coming out that you won't be able to see in theaters because, you know,
they're all
COVID.
closed.
It's called
Yeah.
Deep Throat.
Swallow. It's called Swallow.
That's called Swallow.
Yeah.
What is it?
It's
I've seen that poster everywhere. But I don't
it's
know.
about because I have to like for the radio station I have to get a web page all complete with like movies coming out in the week or whatever. And I saw the trailer for this, and it's about a woman who's like in the perfect home or whatever, but she's also she has like an addiction to swallowing small objects.
Hmm.
And I don't know if it's the trailer. I don't know if the movie's going to be any good, but the trailer was actually quite fascinating. So if you want to see, if you want to see, if you want to see the dramatized version of that My Strange Addiction and have it not be funny, you know, if you're more of a
Bit of a drama.
a drama person, you can go see that. But
Yeah,
It's labeled as a horror movie, which I'm surprised by.
yeah,
88% on Rotten Tomatoes, though.
Yeah.
by critics or
Critics 88% and audience is 75.
okay. Well, because I looked up Us. Speaking of last week,
Oh, yeah,
and a lot of the audience score is really low, so I tend to trust the audience now. I'm on that side. It'll probably flip back to critics when I see a movie that I like but everybody else hates.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, the
You just
critics
need,
are right.
You need to feel
Critics are right.
justified. You're like,
Yeah.
whatever side I fall on.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, yeah, Jesus. Us is 93 for critics. Ooh.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Wow.
What is it for audience? It was like
59%.
yeah.
Yeah, that makes more sense.
Yeah. So, but yeah, I don't know. You guys got anything else? I feel like we did a good Vice of the Week with the.
Yeah, that was pretty.
It was
That
a
was
shared
a lot
vice.
to go on with.
Yeah.
It was a shared Vice.
Right.
It was a Vice of the Week. A Vice of the Day, even.
Yeah.
Told you guys. The show was changing.
It's a sign from God, that here's
like-
an earthquake. You're doing it right.
Yeah, exactly.
Content.
It was God's applause. He's like, yeah, good first episode.
See, I gotta say, Eloy, I don't know. Was that a bad joke to make? Because Josh, when the earthquake was happening, he's like, "Did you guys feel that earthquake just now?" And I'm like, "Yeah." People are freaked out, and Josh is like, "Yeah." People are calling their families. Eloy's like, "That's gnarly." And then I said, "Content."
Yeah, that's just been ringing in my head since then. Like
Every time an aftershock hit, I'm like, wow, content. This is 5 more minutes.
Come on, man. I thought it was a little funny.
That is funny.
Come on.
No, it is.
I appreciate it. I believe I even told you I like the way your mind works.
Yeah.
I know, but I thought that was like a, what do they call that?
Like a backhanded
a
compliment.
backhanded compliment kind of thing. But anyways.
What? Oh, fuck.
Sponsoring episode 54 of Vice of Life is Podcorn. Now, you might be wondering what Podcorn is. Podcorn is a marketplace connecting podcasters to amazing podcast sponsorship opportunities, such as host-read ads, interview segments, topical discussions, and more. With Podcorn, there's no middleman, and that's really important for us here at Vice of Life, because when we first heard about Podcorn, they had actually sent us an email, and we were all very skeptical because it seemed too good to be true, but I'm here to tell you that it's the real deal, all right? Podcorn aims to connect podcasts of all different sizes and communities to the perfect advertisers for the podcast. Now, what that means is that the podcasters have complete control over who sponsors their show, and so therefore they still own the content, the podcasters do, but the advertisers enhance what the content is. And that's all possible through Podcorn because they make it so easy. The interface is smooth as silk, and you should really check it out if you have a podcast. And even if you don't have a podcast, you should make one and get on Podcorn. It's been great for Vice of Life. We're doing it right now. We're using Podcorn to have Podcorn sponsor the show. So click the link in the show notes if you're interested, and on with the show. So this is going to be a new test for us. We're going to try, I guess this is actually the first new topic rather than me telling you about some historical event or whatever. But
Sure.
I basically said we all needed to watch Jojo Rabbit. I think we all did it on our own time. Eloy probably saw it with his thing before
Shit.
coronavirus.
I
became
saw
a
it
thing.
in theaters like a month or so ago.
Yeah.
Oh, nice.
I don't know when you saw it, Josh. But
I watched it at home a week or two ago. Something like that.
I think I watched it about a week ago, too.
Yeah.
Well, actually, no. This past weekend is when I finished it. But so
Do that. You can watch movies in parts. I hate it.
Oh yeah,
The only one I've ever done that with is The Irishman because I'm like, fuck, I need a break.
that's how I am with all the movies. I need a break.
Huh.
I don't know. I get bored real fast.
Fair.
Yeah, I kind of do too, and I start tuning out, and then I'm like, oh shit, I just missed what was going on that whole
Yeah.
time. Like,
And I have a tendency in my brain to be like, I gotta see every single scene, unless I really am not
That's cool.
interested. Then I just whatever. So I always have to like rewind it whenever I miss it. It's like a book, people will read a
Yeah.
book and they say, "Oh, I just read a whole page without understanding it." It's
I'm,
that same kind of thing with movies.
I'm like that with reading a lot more.
Yeah.
I'm bad with reading, honestly. I wish I was better, but
Well.
that's different.
Here's your opportunity.
Jojo Rabbit.
Jojo Rabbit. So this is I believe, the second film from Taika Waititi.
I think he's had a few more.
Has he? Well, feature film.
Hmm.
Oh, I guess he has. Yeah, actually, the second one that I give a shit about, I should say, because he did.
Let's see what else he's got.
He did Thor. I know he did Thor Ragnarok. I
Thor
think.
Ragnarok,
Oh yeah, I did hear that.
He did What We Do in the Shadows, which is a great movie.
I love What We Do in the Shadows. Yeah,
Yeah, I need to watch that. What is that about?
it's
like 3 vampire roommates, and
Oh.
like they have this beef with like these werewolves in town, and they're just like, oh, I guess there's like technically a fourth one, but he's like this ancient vampire, so he's like really old.
Yeah.
Oh.
I don't know. It's a really dry, like humor, but I love it. It's
love
hilarious.
Like the starting scene is where there's like a flat meeting, and they're all talking about it, and they're like, "You haven't done your dishes in 500 years, man. What are you doing?" He's like, anyways, you just gotta watch it. But
Yeah, I'm
There's
gonna
like
watch
this
that.
whole plot where it's just like one of I believe Taika Waititi plays one of them,
yeah.
Oh, nice.
and there's just this whole subplot of like his dating life and
Oh,
everything.
yeah.
It's just, nothing that you think of when you think of like three vampires living together. I don't know.
Yeah, I like the sound of this a lot.
Like one of my favorite lines ever is because Eloy said they had a beef with the werewolves, and their whole thing is that they don't swear.
Oh, that's
so,
funny.
like when they get into a beef with the vampires, some of them start swearing, and then the leader's like, "Hey, what are we? We're not like we're werewolves, not swearwolves."
Oh yeah.
I fucking love it. But
Yeah, I got like Nosferatu in there. He kind of looks
Yep,
like
that's his-
Nosferatu. Yeah. Nice.
It's like the elder vampires.
yeah,
I don't know. They also have a show that they put out about it.
I
Huh.
don't think it's as funny. I watched an
haven't seen the
episode and I
show
was
yet.
just like,
I felt like it wouldn't translate to like seasons upon seasons, but
yeah. I think it was like lightning in a bottle kind of thing. But
yeah, you're right. That's his two big ones. Yeah, are wait, no, he also did Hunt for the Wilder People, which was like a critical.
eh,
It was like a Hunt for the Wilder People, Wilder People, whatever. It was like a critical darling in 2016.
I just have never heard of it.
I haven't either.
But I don't know. My skepticism, as you guys have come to know and love, at first with Taika Waititi. I knew he was like becoming a thing after he was announced to be directing Thor Ragnarok. Like that's a big deal. You get and for fuck's sake, you're directing a Marvel movie. And I was just kind of like, who is this fuck? You know, he's not that good. And then I saw What We Do in the Shadows. Then I've seen Jojo Rabbit now, and I think he's actually really good. And so I flipped over. I think he's good. I'm not such a skeptic anymore.
Nice.
But basically, Jojo Rabbit, I wasn't sure based on the trailers what to think. I thought it was just going to be like following a boy in camp,
Yeah.
and the whole shtick is just that he has the imaginary Hitler friend.
Yeah, I saw
And that
like
there wasn't going to be much of a story.
a single trailer before I watched the movie, and that's exactly what I thought it would be.
Yeah. So I just was kind of like, oh, it'll just be good goofs and laughs. And then I actually saw it, and I was kind of freaking out because I said that we should do this. And I'm like, I don't think there's actually going to be a lot to talk about. But then I actually saw the movie, and I think it actually deals with a lot of good stuff. Not good stuff. It deals with a lot of heavy stuff.
Yeah.
And so how I kind of envision that this discussion will go is more based on the times and how this movie represents a point of view that I don't think we see very often.
Yeah.
Especially in today's culture. I know that probably gets old. That's the new, in today's culture. But, I'm honestly surprised that this movie was made and it did as well as it did. Because I feel like just the fact that you're making something in Nazi Germany and the whole shtick is, Hitler is my friend.
It's like
Yeah, he's my idol. Like,
Yeah.
he's my
on
hero.
surface level, it's like romanticizing the Nazi agenda.
Yeah. Like, I can't believe that this movie was made, but then, especially with some of the jokes they make in the movie, there's a lot of, Jew jokes that I thought were not okay in modern
Yeah.
society.
It's context,
Yeah. I was laughing, though, and I didn't feel bad about it, so take that. you know.
Nice. Take that, you damn.
But
people.
Scarlett Johansson, so she plays this boy, Johannes Jojo Betzler.
Well, she
His
doesn't
mother.
play him.
She plays his
Yeah.
mother.
Isn't that what I said?
No, he said
Oh.
she plays JoJo. That's what he said.
Oh, sorry, I'm reading different keywords here, but yeah, she plays the mother of this boy, and the whole thing. I don't know if we should spoil it. What do you guys think?
Probably not.
Yeah.
I guess we could just say spoiler alert.
We could do just a general impression section. Then
All right.
Yeah.
So basically, the movie is more deep than the trailer would have us believe. It follows this boy. He's I can just read it right here, I guess. Johannes Jojo Betzler, a Hitler Youth member who finds out his mother is hiding a Jewish girl in their attic. He must then question his beliefs while dealing with the intervention of his imaginary friend, a fanciful version of Adolf Hitler, with a comedic stand on politics of the war. So there's a thing about that. But what struck me is I love the shots in this film of Scarlett Johansson's feet. That sounds weird to say.
Yeah,
But I don't remember
Whoa,
much
hey.
of that.
Yeah, no. But it plays a part because, like, his mother is dancing, and you see her shoes, and it becomes
yeah.
a big thing.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And okay, this is going to be a spoiler alert because this is how I'm going to lead into.
Well, real quick,
a subject.
are you just gonna spoil this quick moment, or do you want to just talk about it and then just do a big blowout?
I just want to talk about the moments because that leads me into talking about the bad stuff, so to speak. But anyway, so throughout the film, spoiler alert again, there's frames of this boy's mother, played by Scarlett Johansson, like I said, and she's dancing, and you only see her feet, or she's walking, and you only see her feet, or whatever. Throughout the film, there's different things of that. And then early on in the film, you see public displays of hangings, which I did not know that they did, actually, in Nazi Germany. Did you guys?
I didn't.
And see, this is what I appreciate about this film, is that I didn't... Because a lot of the times how we get taught is just like Nazi Germany, and you're like, oh, everything's bad. And you don't really learn a lot about it unless you really try to learn about the horrors that happen.
Yeah.
It's just like the Holocaust, and you're like, wow, yeah. And you just kind of glaze over your eyes. And I'm not saying that like you're bored, but it's just so much to take in that you don't realize what's going on. And so when you see it on the screen like that, and these aren't, I don't even think those are Jews. Those are just like...
Didn't seem like it.
I don't know, what would you say?
I feel like there were many a reason that people were up there.
Yeah.
I was kind of thrown off because a lot of them had signs on them and stuff. So was that put on after, or were they hung because of it, or was it like a political statement? I was kind of what was their reasoning there,
I was trying to read the signs, but I don't think you could. Maybe you could. They might have been in German, so I don't know.
Oh, yeah.
That's what I was trying to
probably
figure
were.
out, is I don't know what those are for, but...
Were they hanging in protest, or because they were protesters? Or just other people were making a statement about them being hanged? I don't know. That's what I didn't know.
You've lost me. I lost the thread.
Well, because they're hanging there, and some of them have signs on them and stuff, that were in protest of the Nazi regime.
And you're saying who put the signs up?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. I don't know. I'm assuming that it would be the Nazis that put it there, and for this treason, or beware.
I think it was supposed to be detailing their crimes.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's just my interpretation. I didn't know exactly though.
Yeah.
But I don't know. To me, it's just you learn about the Holocaust, and you just see these mass graves in these photos, and it's that is insane. That's disgusting. That's despicable. But I think we as humans have a tendency to we don't comprehend big numbers.
Right.
And so it's just kind of oh yeah, those are a lot of dead bodies, and you don't really process the impact of it. But for some reason, seeing public hangings, even if just for fuck's sake, it's in a comedy film,
Yeah.
is interesting to me because it made an impact. But anyways, Jojo, still spoiler alert, Jojo's mother is eventually caught she eventually gets hanged.
Right.
And how he finds out is that he walks into frame of these shoes, and I'm like, oh shit. immediately my heart
Oh,
stopped
that's
as I
right.
saw that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like I never even gave any thought to how often they were showing her shoes. Like I never took note of it. But then when that happened, it's immediate recognition.
Yeah.
I thought it was beautiful.
Well, no, I think it's definitely interesting because, like, the dancing and all these things is kind of like a statement of, like, we're still human, we're still alive, they can't take that from us and everything.
Yeah.
And then that same exact spirit is ultimately broken, and it's like those feet go from being animated and alive to lifeless, and that's kind of like, I don't know, it's not really about not being able to escape your fate or something, but it's, I don't know, I guess you could say she made the best use of the time she had, kind of thing. Like, you know what I mean? Like the moments that you do have, make the most out of them, like that type of idea in a way.
Yeah. And what I find fascinating about the character is, again, it brings a point, again, like, to me, in my mind for the longest time, the Nazis have just been this blob of evil.
Yeah.
And I've never really considered that there probably are people, well, aren't, there were people who were very anti-war, and they knew what Hitler was doing was wrong. And I love that this is portrayed in this film.
Yeah.
But I should have taken notes. Yikes.
No, it's all
Yikes.
I don't know. This movie is just, it walked a delicate balance of having like that perfect amount of comedy and like being one of the most heartfelt, like dramatic things I've seen in a good while.
Yeah.
And what I really enjoyed about Scarlett Johansson's character is that it was just like this relationship where it's the mother and son, so they love each other, but they just have completely different viewpoints. Like,
yeah.
the mother's just completely against everything that, like, Hitler's doing, the Nazi regime. And then the son's just this fanatic that he's like, when I grow up, I'm going to be in the war. I'm going to be killing Jews and everything like that.
Yeah.
He even has all these books about how Jews have wings and fangs and everything like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
See, a lot of what I got out of this film, I just take it back. I put it back into the real world of the situation, and propaganda is insane. Like, to me, I always would grow up and I would think, yeah, whoever falls for this propaganda shit is stupid. And but you see it in this film of, it's just a kid,
Right.
and that's all he knows, and it becomes embedded in him that this is the right thing to do for your country and for your family and everything. And so in his mind, it's insane that his mom is not totally on board. Like, she wants the war to be over. Like, she's not rah Germany kind of thing.
Yeah.
And I don't know. It makes me think, what kind of propaganda did I grow up with that I am still kind of blind about? And in a lot of ways, I think I still have a hard time getting rid of that when something is brought to my attention that I have been propagandized, if that's a word, to believe. And I still do. Like, it's hard for me to let that go. And so it makes me worry that, what if I would have been a Nazi in that time?
Right.
Not to empathize with those people, of course, but
to reflect
see
on your own, like, that's something, I say this too much, but Jordan Peterson talks about that. Like, you don't know that you wouldn't have been a Nazi. Like, his point is, like, we all have that capacity for evil or not. Like, I don't think Jojo's evil. Like, he thinks he's coming from a good place. Like, he thinks he's being a patriot and all these things. Like, it's coming from this innocent place. And yeah, like, so I guess the point he makes is that if you try to deny the fact that you're just as capable of being influenced by that, then you have a lot of self-reflection to do, because I mean, I don't think that I don't think at all that God damn it, my throat that a lot of people like his mom, I think maybe kind of what you were thinking and trying to say is she was sort of assimilating and just kind of trying to like get by quietly, but has all this inner dialogue about what's actually right or wrong to her. And she's doing it in an independent way, and he's doing it in like a conformist kind of way. But they're both kind of facing the same thing because she's saying like, look a tiger in the eye and all this stuff about like overcoming fear, you know, and he thinks he's doing that too, but like on the other side of it.
Yeah.
Like the evil Jew and all this stuff. Like, yeah, but she's seeing the Nazis as the evil ones, you know, and so they're both coming from a place of like justice, but it's all about what that programming is and what your perceptions of reality
softwares.
are. Yeah.
Yeah. Operating systems, rather.
Yeah.
I feel like there's multiple instances and multiple viewpoints in the movie or in the film about you don't know, like, that you wouldn't have been a Nazi. Like, we've said it about Jojo. Yeah, like, that's just what everybody wants to do and everything, so it's kind of like the norm. And you also see it with Sam Rockwell's character, I believe. I don't know what rank he is, but he's kind of more or less Jojo's mentor.
Yeah.
And I get the sense that he's been in the military for a long time before this like agenda ever came to be.
Yeah.
And at that point, like, you're just kind of grandfathered in. Like, you have to follow this path, otherwise you're going to possibly be publicly hung. Like, you're going against it at that point.
Yeah.
But I never got the sense that he was super into it. Like, he believed everything that he was fighting for.
Yeah, it's just self-preservation for a lot of people. Like, you're just going with the flow, and like, nobody likes to be the outsider, whether in Nazi Germany or whether in your high school fucking kickball class or whatever. Yeah. Nobody wants to be the outsider, and so you do what you can to assimilate. And I think a lot of people would just be surprised at the human ability to assimilate to terrible cultures and the propaganda of totalitarian government kind of thing.
Yeah.
But speaking of that character specifically, again, it just brings to mind like it put a human dynamic to the individuals living within the Nazi regime.
Yeah.
Like, it didn't say like some Nazis weren't bad. Like, that's not what it's trying to say. But it brings a human element to it, and in that regard, it makes it all the more serious of an event.
Yeah.
But with that character, I think, you know, there's hints at him being gay, I think.
Yeah, definitely.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Which is also something that I've just never really considered, you know. And I mean, even Jojo, I mean, he's technically a cripple. Like, it talks about a lot of things.
True.
These people still existed in that country.
Yeah.
But you just never hear about it because of how terrible everything else was. And so I found it really interesting just to see that brought to life. Those kinds of people. And I mean, even like the little fat friend.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that it's we Aryans are so much better than the Jews for whatever reason. You just have this fat little kid running around with his gun. He can't move in his uniform, and the fat woman telling all the kids that the Jews fucking have horns or tails or whatever. But
yeah.
I don't know. It's just like we were saying. It's the human capacity to really just become a terrible thing. But
I get what you're saying, though. Like, I'm looking at a picture of one of the posters right now, and like the Sam Rockwell character that's like training the kids and everything. Like, he has the bad eye too, and yeah, I think it's just kind of a way of saying like they're flawed people. Like, even though they think they're like this height of perfection or whatever, it's like, well, there's this thing. They're, you know, like they're humans wrapped inside this package of an idea, like, but they can't escape the fact of what their sexual preference is, or that they got injured, or all these different things, like, and the real self is like trying to come through the whole time. But there's only so much they allow themselves to do, basically.
But they're suffocated by the
Yeah.
dogma of
Yeah.
not religion, but a religion-like structure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I don't know.
I haven't thought about much of this until now, so it's kind of fun.
And that's why I am happy that I did this topic. But
Yeah.
I'm also realizing now how hard it is to talk for half an hour about a film when I'm not a film critic.
Oh, I could talk
You know.
for like hours about this movie, but I didn't know which direction this was going to go, and this is a lot more philosophical than I was expecting. I was ready to be like, yeah, this scene was really good, and the cinematography on this one,
Yeah.
Well, let me be honest with you, Elo. My mind is really bad with, like, for fuck's sake, I was saying how the earthquake earlier today is like a foggy, distant dream in my mind.
yeah.
Movies are even harder for me to remember and shit. Unless, like,
Me
you
too.
jog it with a specific thing, then I'm like, oh, yeah, and then I remember it clearly.
Yeah, exactly.
But the fog of memory sets in real quick for me, man. Real quick. So we could have gone scene by scene, and I didn't know if that's what we wanted to do because I don't know how exciting that is for people who haven't seen it. And so
I
that's
wasn't
kinda
thinking
why I
scene by
was-
scene. I don't know. I don't know. I just didn't know what direction this was going to take. I'm fine with it.
Yeah, me either, man.
I just
That's why a lot of this time I've been, this is, I just need to take notes, and
Yeah.
maybe I'll be more succinct and clear with my points. But
we haven't spoken about Taika Waititi as Adolf Hitler yet, though.
yeah,
Which I'm
oh,
surprised.
that's him?
Yeah, that's him.
Okay, I didn't know that. That's funny.
and it is like,
Even funnier, he's Jewish.
Nice.
is he?
Yeah, he's like, I'm gonna play Hitler because, like, even in this little like trivia, like this little section from an interview he did, he's like, yeah, I decided to play Hitler because, like, how else do you give him a bigger fuck you?
Yeah,
That's true. I also find it funny throughout the film, a lot of people's German accents would drop and they'd go
Yeah.
back into their American accent or their UK or whatever.
Yep.
I noticed that quite a bit, but
Oh, I didn't notice that.
I noticed it too.
the movie is good enough that you're kind of like, yeah, okay, because it's silly enough that it's like I'm not expecting, like, you know, a masterful accent or whatever, but
Yeah. They did what they could.
yeah, they did. Like, even Taika Waititi, like his German accent, I don't think is great, but he played Hitler fine, I think.
Yeah.
But-
Yeah, I mean, it's also a child's perception of Hitler too, you know.
It's like,
so it's
yeah,
like
just like-
cartoonish.
It's like a
and-
caricature. of
Yeah, not
what
fully
Hitler-
fleshed out. So it is kind of funny that it's like going in and out of being accurate. Like,
Yeah. I fucking loved. Speaking of scenes that I love the scene where, like, Jojo comes back into his room, and Hitler's just laying in his bed, like, reading a book.
yeah.
I love that scene so much. I don't know why, but
I like that he's kind of like catty. He's kind of bitchy, you know. He's
Yeah.
like, "Where were you?" with his arms crossed. and
Yeah.
stuff.
I love it. But
There's definitely some like Wes Anderson influence, maybe a little Tarantino, like just that very like indie movie type thing.
Yeah.
I liked it.
It's like he was able to make the movie he wanted to make. Is how
Yeah.
it felt to me. Yeah.
do you guys ever, when you see historical, like, movies based on historical events, do you guys ever Google the event and just, like, look through scan through the Wikipedia or whatever and try to see what's different between what's portrayed and what
Not
actually
very
happened?
often. That sounds
Not really, no.
interesting though.
See, so maybe that's how I always watch these kinds of movies, and so I was thinking, like, again, spoiler alert, but the end of the movie, I guess it's not really.
We've
If
kinda
you know your
covered some big
history,
ones.
Berlin was invaded by the Red Army, and that's how Germany was defeated in World War II.
Yeah.
But that's portrayed in the film, and it shows that the Americans were there, and I don't think we ever were based on what I was reading.
All right.
So, fucking what? We didn't. I don't know.
Talk about propaganda.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. That's what I was trying to say.
Yeah.
But man, it's insane. So now I'm just gonna talk about weird history facts.
That's good to do, I think.
The Red Army. Do you know how many? So, take a wild guess of like what the average. Well, I'll tell you. Like the average army or whatever has, I don't know, maybe not single digits, but like 7-digit people, men, like millions of men, like 1-2 million. Guess how many fucking Red Army had in World War II? Just actual individual men soldiers.
12,000.
Like 12 million, 20 million.
Wow. Okay.
Just
Shit.
tons and tons and tons and tons and tons of people, man. You just look at those numbers, but
Wow.
I don't know. I geeked out about that for a while. I was like, that's insane, man. You just think about it. You can just mobilize that amount of people.
Yeah,
and,
exactly.
just towards a cause. But anyways, I don't know where we're going. That's been Jojo Rabbit. Thanks for
Indoctrination.
thanks for sticking around with that.
I think it was pretty good.
Watch
I
the
feel good
movie.
with it.
Yeah.
I wanted
go
to
watch
say
it.
the Rotten Tomatoes score, since we were talking about it earlier, just for the
Yeah.
hell of it. 80% critics, 94% audience.
See, the audience got it right this time. Yeah.
Audience definitely got it right. Also won the Oscar for Best Adapted Screenplay.
Yeah.
Oh, nice.
Well deserved.
Oh yeah, it was. I was reading that. Yeah, it's based on a different book. I didn't know that. I thought it was
Oh.
an
Yeah,
original
I can't
work.
recall what the
I didn't know
book
that.
is
So
called.
I feel like the critics go after like the cinematography and the script and all these things that most people aren't necessarily digging into
Yeah.
as much, and that's where
That's
it
true.
kind of.
I'm honestly shocked the scores aren't flipped on this one.
I know. Huh?
I think probably. Never mind.
Like Us was technically a good film in a lot of ways, like structurally and all these things, but it kind of
Yeah.
falls flat on the audience because they're
Yeah.
not. They don't care about certain aspects that a critic will.
That voice, man. I swear to God. Audio is a big thing for me in like media.
yeah.
Like it's got to sound like the music or whatever else. And so I can't do it.
That pulled me out of it
I
too.
can't do it.
And yet we accept Christian Bale's Batman voice. What's that all about?
Christian Bale, garbage Batman.
What?
Hot
Fuck
take. Ben Affleck, actually the best Batman.
Oh, fuck off.
No, how
Not
about
in the best movie, but the best Batman.
I'm excited for the Robert Pattinson. That should be
Me
interesting.
too. Trying to
Christian
find
Bale.
what
Take
this
that
book
back.
is called.
Christian Bale's the best. You son of a bitch.
The question is, who's best Joker?
Ooh.
Joaquin Phoenix.
I need to go. I have
But it
a
depends
note.
on.
I have a very scary ripped piece of paper that just says Nicholson Joker with a scary smiley face on it because I've been meaning to watch it. I want to go through all the
Yeah.
Jokers and decide who I like.
It depends on how you want your Joker, really, I suppose.
Yeah.
But Caging Skies is the name of the book this is based on.
That's a good name.
I like that.
I like that.
Apparently, very
it's a good
different
way to
from the movie.
summarize it.
So I'm gonna have to read that one day.
What was that?
Apparently, very, very different from the movie. So I'm intrigued
Oh.
to see.
Yeah, it's probably not very funny.
Yeah.
I imagine it's probably pretty real. So maybe I should read it because that's what fascinates me. But all right, guys,
That is a great title. Anyway.
I think that's been it for this episode 54. Thanks you guys. Thank you guys for listening. We'll see you guys next week.
Bye.
Bye bye.
Thanks for listening to Vice of Life podcast. And give us a follow on Instagram and Twitter at Vice of Life Pod. YouTube, Vice of Life. Email at viceoflifepodcast at gmail.com. And on our Patreon, just you go into the bar and you type in Vice of Life. Review and subscribe and tell your friends. Vote for me.